What is up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to FudgeMuppet. My name is Scott, and today we are looking at the creation of the world you love. Well, part of the creation. The beings responsible for the very creation of Nirn, the world on which the land of Tamriel sits, the land where you have spent countless lives living different adventures, be it an orc climbing the peaks of Skyrim to fight a dragon, or a Breton uncovering the secrets of old Ayleid ruins in Cyrodiil. This world that you love, the world you love to explore in all its wondrous glory, came at a cost, the cost of spirits, ancient and far older than Nirn itself. Today we are going to understand who the Ehlnofey are and how they played their part in the creation of Nirn. So to begin, before we can really get into the whole Ehlnofey part, we need to look at creation itself and turn the wheel back a bit. So in the beginning, we have the Aedra, the original spirits. The Aedra were birthed from the interplay of the two primal forces that transcend all, Anu and Padme. You may very well have heard a lot about these before. Anu, the force of order and stability, and Padme, the force of chaos and instability. To give everyone a brief understanding of the beginning of all time, there were two forces, Anu and Padme, fighting against each other eternally, order versus chaos. Anu then created itself a soul, Anoiel. Padme did the same and created itself a soul called Sithis. I'll leave a link below to our video on the creation of the universe, who is Sithis. This will explain all of creation in more depth, but for the moment, the need to know knowledge is Anoiel and Sithis then create themselves each a soul. Anoiel made Auriel, who created time, stabilizing the universe and allowing for the birth of the Aedra, the original spirits, and Sithis created Lorkhan, which we know causes a bunch of fun stuff. So, long story short, Lorkhan comes along to a whole bunch of the Aedra and suggests that two realms, Aetherius and Oblivion, aren't enough, and they need to make themselves another realm. Lorkhan didn't share the fact that these Aedra will have to give up their power for the creation of Nirn, and he successfully tricked many. Like I said, check out the video I linked below for more detailed explanation, but essentially it is this event that splits the definitions of the Aedra. So you have the Daedra, a group of Aedra who flat out refuse to help with the creation of Mundus and just set off to make their own planes of Oblivion. Then you have the Aedra, the Aedra who helped with the creation of Mundus, and then you also have the Magnagi, who were followers of Magnus, who abandoned the project at the last minute when they discovered they had been tricked. Magnus and the Magnagi bailed and tore through Mundus, creating the sun and stars. So after Lorkhan was punished for his treachery, the most powerful Aedra like Auriel, Mara, Julianos and the like finished creating Mundus, but they lost much of their power doing so, resulting in being more or less unconscious planets floating around in Mundus with certain degrees of influence, unlike the Daedra, who are very, very active and very influential. But back to the topic at hand. This story all loops back to the question, who are the Ehlnofey? Well, the Ehlnofey are the descendants of the Aedra. They are those who lost much of their power when creating Mundus and were stuck on Nirn. They sacrificed themselves to make it all work, to help bind reality, create the forces of nature, and of course, the people and creatures of Tamriel. So what it seems like is there was a group of Ehlnofey, which remember essentially means the Aedra who were screwed by Lorkhan and no longer have the power to leave Nirn, who doubled down and committed to Nirn, sacrificing themselves and making themselves the Earthbones, which more or less seems to mean all the forces of Nirn. For example, it is said that Dwemer, using their tonal architecture, could manipulate the Earthbones, exerting their influence over them, changing the effects of time and abusing the laws of nature. The forest god of the Bosmer, Ifri, is an example of an Ehlnofey that sacrificed itself to form the rules of nature. So a safe assumption would be that certain Ehlnofey sacrifice themselves to become the sky, the water, the rules of disease, etc., etc., essentially all of the elements that make up reality. So there are the Ehlnofey who sacrifice themselves to become everything we know, but what of the others, those who didn't? Well, there are two main groups of Ehlnofey, the Old Ehlnofey and the Wandering Ehlnofey. Now, being spirits who were tricked and then forced to be on a planet that is ever-changing and crazy while it's being properly created, this kind of stuffed up the memories and functioning of a lot of the Ehlnofey, confusing many of them, sending them all over Tamriel. It is the Old Ehlnofey who found what we know as Aldmeris, the ancestral home of the elves. These Ehlnofey, the old Ehlnofey fortify the borders of this land, a calm land of order and stability where they could live on as before the creation of Mundus. These old Ehlnofey would become the first race of elves, who would then move and migrate, forming the many kinds of elves that we know today: Dwemer, Keimer, Altmer, Dunmer, Bosmer, Marimar, Falmer. So all of the elves are descendants of the old Ehlnofey, the Ehlnofey who found a place of order and calm, which we know as Aldmeris, and they chilled here for millennia until they started to venture into a more stable Nirn in the Merethic era. However, back in the Dawn era, when the old Ehlnofey had found a neat little home for themselves, the rest of the Ehlnofey, called the Wandering Ehlnofey, were scattered and were left to move from place to place in a not yet fully formed world of Nirn, leaving them confused and disoriented. Eventually, as the Ehlnofey who sacrificed themselves becoming the Earthbones and the Aedra finish up working on Nirn, the scattered Wandering Ehlnofey find themselves in all different corners of the world. The Wandering Ehlnofey found the home of the old Ehlnofey, expecting to be welcomed, but the old Ehlnofey thought the Wandering to be degenerates who had fallen from former grace. These Wandering Ehlnofey would become the races of man. The Redguards, originally from Yakuta, the Nords, originally from Admora, humans in Tamriel and Akavir, all over the place. And so begins the age-old conflict of elves versus men, which in other words is the old Ehlnofey versus the Wandering Ehlnofey. It is also likely that non-elven races like Saisi and Argonians are also descendants of Wandering Ehlnofey, but we can't say for sure. So, I'll recap to make sure it's all clear. Lorkhan tricks a bunch of Et'Ada into creating Mundus. Lorkhan is found and punished by the Aedra. The Aedra, the ones you know as the Eight Divines, use huge amounts of their power to finish Nirn, but they still have enough power to exert influence over Nirn, and they have their own cool little planet. However, the rest of the Et'Ada who were tricked into creation are the Ehlnofey. These were stuck on Nirn, and 3 different paths were chosen, dividing them into 3 groups. Some Ehlnofey sacrificed themselves to create the Earthbones, things like the rules of nature. Other Ehlnofey found a stable, calm home, aka Aldmeris, where they could stay and preserve ancient knowledge, shutting out the rest of Nirn while it was crazy and turbulent. These were the old Ehlnofey, the ancestors of the elven races. And then there are the Wandering Ehlnofey, who were stuck in the chaotic formation of Nirn, who then became the races of man. The old Ehlnofey, aka the elves, do not like the Wandering Ehlnofey, aka men. Hence the premise of the Elder Scrolls series, which more or less is elves versus men, a theme that occurs again and again throughout Elder Scrolls history. Thanks so much for watching, guys. I hope this answered all of your questions about the Ehlnofey and gave you a solid explanation of who the Ehlnofey are. So now when you see that word in a book or you hear about it, you will know all the context. Give the video a like if this helped you out or you simply just enjoyed it. My name is Scott from FudgeMuppet, and I'll be back to nerd out with you again.